Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott MacKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for joining the number one industrial-related podcast in the universe that celebrates you industrial professionals all around the world. All around the world. Yeah, we're global. We're global. And we celebrate you because you are changing lives and you are changing the world each and every day. You are the heroes in this story, Industrial Talk. All right, we have a great conversation. Project Success, Inc. That's the name of the company. Clint Padgett is the founder and CEO. He is going to be talking a little bit about project management, but you know how you just love some of these projects and you won't let them go? There's ways of being able to manage them in a way that, makes sense. We're going to have a great conversation, so let's shut this down a little bit here. Let's get cracking. As I use my mixer and I just sort of slowly fade that out. It's a good mixer. It's a Rode. Good mixer. Highly recommend it. Speaking of which, this is just something I've been thinking about. And I'm looking at you. If you're not doing podcasts for your company, you're missing out on opportunities to expand your business. You are. Podcasting is a powerful marketing platform that benefits you and your company, as well as the individual that you are, targeting. I have a series out there of how you leverage podcasting for business and how this platform allows you to expand your reach. And I get it. I get it. Sometimes you're a little nervous about what does that look like, and I'm here. I'm here to help you. Especially now, I want you to succeed. And if you're not doing a podcast, if you're not podcasting, you are missing out. You are losing, and I have no data to back it up because we're all about data, but I think you're losing market share to the companies that are doing podcasting. And it doesn't require that much effort. It just doesn't. I mean, I do this, I've been doing this, and I release around 3 a week, but I'm very fortunate because I broadcast from events live, talk to these leaders, but I'm here to tell you that you need to podcast. And if you're podcasting already and you're saying to yourself, Scott, but I'm not getting the traction I need, you need to talk to me because I can definitely help. We have a platform that will amplify your podcast. It's all there, ready to go. You just need to put it out on Industrial Talk. I'll pump it all day long because the overall driving focus of Industrial Talk is your success. We are in a real renaissance period. Energy is a huge topic. The technology and innovation that is needed, huge topic. We are at a real renaissance when it comes to industry, and you need to be a part of that. You need to be engaged, and you need to engage your market. I went off on a soapbox, but I just am adamant about it. If you're not doing a podcast, you need to do a podcast, and you need to talk to me. If you are doing a podcast and you're saying, I'm not getting the results that I need, I guarantee you, we can tweak and tune and be able to get that podcast in such a way that you are actually targeting the right individuals to be able to bring your revenue into your business. I'm confident. I'm confident. And in fact, speaking of events, there is an event that I'm going to. It's in Anaheim. I don't have it up here. Let me see. Shoot. I'm sorry. I don't have it up. It's MD and M in Anaheim. And I'll be there. We'll be broadcasting from that particular site. That is, I want to say February 6th February 3rd through the 6th. Be there, be square. It's a great event. You got to go out to that, the website, find out who's going to be there. Massive manufacturing opportunity, massive opportunity for networking. And you get to see me. Yeah, see? There you go. For whatever it's worth. But I have a number of other events that I will be attending. And then you can go out to Industrial Talk. You can find them. And if you're going to be attending them, you need to look me up because I'm all about your success. Keep on saying that. We're about your success. So let's make that happen. It's a renaissance. All right. On to the chat. Chris Padgett. Project Success Inc. is the company. Not Chris, sorry, Clint. Clint Padgett. I knew it didn't come out right. And Clint Padgett, we're talking about project management and leadership in this particular conversation. So enjoy. Clint, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for finding time in your busy schedule. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the talk.
Hey, how come you have such a great rig? You got a nice mic, you got a boom. I see. Do you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. It's called The Conversation on Forbes Books Radio, The Conversation with Clint Padgett. So yeah.
There you go, man. Well, you gotta post it on Industrial Talk.
Oh yeah, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, because I consider myself as it's industry, right? Industry talk, right? Industrial talk. Anything that deals with that, that's all good. Give your podcast a little love.
Well, I appreciate that very much so.
Speaking of which, give us a little background on who you are.
All right. Well, I'll give you the snapshot, but basically,
born and raised. I'll just say, hey, no more.
Yeah, I got it. So raised in the rural South, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I went in the Navy for 6 years out of high school. After 6 years of that, I said, college sounds like a pretty good idea. So I got out of the Navy, went to Georgia Tech, have a double E degree from Georgia Tech, an MBA from Duke University, and then spent about 6 years at Coca-Cola in the engineering group. In 1994, I left that and went to work for this company called Project Success, and we basically train and help people execute projects. That's the last 30 years of my career.
This is just on a side note. I remember there was a time when being certified PMP, is that still a thing?
I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here. Yes, it is still a thing, but people ask me that question all the time, and I'm probably going to get hate mail from PMI. But basically, I think there's three reasons why you might want to get a PMP certification. One is just for pride of just doing it, then that's great. I think if you're in job search, it sometimes helps because the person interviewing doesn't know any better, and they go, the certification must mean they're better than Joe over here. Or if your company will pay you more money because you have it. But when we do project management for a living, and when somebody comes to interview for us, we don't even ask that question. Do you have the certification? Because basically it just says you took a test and passed it. It doesn't really tell me about your qualifications to work on projects.
Have you been in the trenches? Have you give me some real life examples?
Here's what happened. How would you handle that? That's the kind of questions we ask.
Yeah.
Not A, B, C, D.
Well, listeners, you can tell that we're going to be talking a little bit about project management. We're going to be talking about leadership. So, Clint, with that said, give us a little, what's the challenge today that exists out there for industry?
I think there's this mantra of, probably the big buzzword of the last half decade has been agile. And people have taken that word. I mean, I got to say, that's probably the best thing they got going for them as a marketing take is who doesn't want to be agile? I want to be agile. You want to be stick in the mud? No, I want to be agile. Come on. And they just think that means you can do it faster for less money. And this is not how the world works, right? This time, cost, and quality are interrelated. And if you want something to happen faster, one of two things is going to happen. You can either spend money to do it faster, or you have to take a less level of quality to be acceptable to make it happen faster. That's just the way the world works. That's physics. So I think one of the challenges is thinking that we can label it agile and therefore do it faster for less money and higher quality. And it just doesn't work. it takes time to do
Well,
high quality work.
you're ticking a lot of people off right now. Yeah, not
I
only
am.
the PMI folks, but now all of a sudden the Agile folks.
I think Agile, it came out of the software development space, and I think
Yeah,
I love it
true.
there. I just think it should stay there, to be honest.
But anyway, and I'll be candid here. If if I had a nickel every time somebody says, okay, another project, we've got a beginning, we got an end, we got this project, and the other projects have been a dismal failure. What makes you think that this one's going to be a success? That's always you got an uphill battle with culture.
You do, and so I'm on a project right now. I won't say the client, and I was brought in about 2.5 years ago because they couldn't tell, and they were using Agile, and the challenge with it was they couldn't tell if this thing they're working on right now were to be late, was that going to affect something a year and a half down the line or not? Because okay, it's in the backlog or it's not, it's in the sprint or it's not. It doesn't tell me what the effect is ripple downstream. And so with planning work, you should be able to plan and know that if this one task slips, it is going to have an effect downstream or it won't. And it's okay that it slips. It doesn't really matter. And then you have to overcome the culture. And the culture is if people tend to start thinking in backlogs and sprints, and okay, that's great. We can plan the sprints, but I need to know what sequence of events are going to affect our ability to actually put this product out in 2 years. And what's the sequence we have to get there. And so it really comes back to one of my things is conversation, Scott. It's all about conversations. It's having a conversation, making a connection with the people, having to understand what pushes their buttons, and you have to make it what's the benefit to them, right? And if project management is one more box I got to check off, you're never going to win the battle. So it has to be what is going to make your life better. Okay, if there are 15 things in your plate, what if I could tell you the 3 that really have to be done, or we're going to be in trouble, and the other 12, nobody's going to care if you're late? Then that's helpful to me as an individual. Now I want to learn more and talk more about this, and I want to plan my stuff so I'll know which 12 can be late and which 3 have got to be done right now, or I'm going to be in front of management going, why I'm the reason the project's late.
Does it bode well for a project to have executive sponsorship support to get everybody else sort of in line? Because here's the reality, right? You're asking a lot of you got to plan that bad boy out. If you're thinking that this task slips a little bit and it's going to affect that task a year and a half from now, that's a lot of planning. That's a lot of linkage.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't like that level of detail. They get bored.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always in all things in life, you have to balance out, right? Too much of anything is probably not great. So for us, the balance is we want to have a lot of detail around the near-term tasks, the things we know about the most. And when I say a lot of detail, that's still like 5 and 10 day chunks. We're not talking about hour-long tasks or even 1 day tasks. We really want 1 and 2 week type of activities, which for the agile people in the world, that's kind of like a sprint for them. So that makes kind of sense.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's a year and a half off in the future, we can leave at less detailed. We still need the bucket and as a placeholder that we can, once we get closer to it, we can then break that down into more detail. So it's kind of a blend of detail around the near-term stuff and the stuff that's way off in the distance. We just need enough detail to be able to know what pushes out and what pushes and doesn't really affect anything.
Do the standard, it's about 18 months.
No, that's not what we do. So when I say it doesn't have to be as detailed, we do project 18 months. Okay, let's all go home, right? But no.
Again, if I had a nickel every time says it's about 18 months.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow.
It's actually 24 months when you do it, but it's 18 months on paper.
So true. Absolutely. So with that said, you're doing a lot of work. You're getting some great visibility into a project. I mean, it could be just whatever project, but you have that visibility. Do you have off ramps in your project schedule to say, wow, it's not working. Where do I shut it down?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the challenges we have on, especially on longer projects, is people get invested, right? You've got a year of your life invested in this thing, your hard blood, sweat, and tears, late nights, weekends, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the goalposts move. Maybe the customer in the semiconductor space, we work in semiconductors, and that's a brutal industry because we might be working on a project for a customer, and that customer has also talked to 3 or 4 competitors. And this could be an 18-month cycle. And if we're yeah, and if we're in month 14 and our competitor comes out, then we lose all. We don't. It's not a shared revenue. They get all the revenue. We get nothing. And yet there'll be somebody on the team who says, "Well, we're only 4 months away. Let's just go ahead and finish it and put it on the shelf." And you have to say, "No. That market we're doing this for is gone. So there's no value." But people will want to push. They're like, "No, I want to see it finish. I want this. I'm invested." And you have to say that's throwing good money after bad. That ship has sailed. We didn't make that sale. We're not going to get that business. So let's table it and let's take the resources we had on this project and let's put them on a different project where we might have a chance for success. Because finishing this one just to put it on the shelf is wasted money. But it's hard to overcome that because there's this mentality of I need to finish it. I've got so much of my life invested. And so you have to figure out as a leader, how do I say that in a way that makes them feel valued, that it wasn't just a waste of a year. So it's things like, well, you know what, let's not finish it. Let's put the IP on the shelf. We'll have it there. If we need it there next time, we can dust it off and we only have a little bit of a way to go, but we can't just keep throwing money, good money after bad. We got to put this on the shelf and move on to something else. And that's hard to do.
Many companies have multiple projects,
of course,
at every state of whatever success. I'm being positive, right?
Yeah.
Every day. But sometimes you'll need to do a little audit, and that audit has to take into consideration all of the projects. Do you and your organization just sort of say, okay, let's look at all of this. We can free up money here just because that project's going. You have to at least have that sort of macro view of what's going on in the projects, right?
Yeah, somebody does. And so what we hope is, because we're using
project management office.
Yeah, let's not go down there either. I'll get everybody mad at me before I'm done. I'm not big on overhead. I'm big on get stuff done, man. So the challenge there is most organizations are just not mature enough to actually do what's called portfolio management. And there should be, to your point, you said it perfectly, somebody in the organization should be looking at all the projects and be able to say, since we don't have unlimited resources, I need to be putting these resources on the projects that are going to deliver the best ROI. That's A, B, C, D, and that's E. I love you guys, but it's just not, we just don't have the capacity right now. And just to be honest with you, most companies don't do that. They tend to try to do everything, and some of them just end up going off the side of the road. And it'd be better if you had some forethought to it, table them temporarily, reallocated your resources, finish those other 3, then come back and pick this one up. But that's not how most people do it, I'm afraid.
So with that said, we've painted a picture that there's a lot of challenges that can exist in any type of management of a project or multiple projects or programs or whatever the terminology might be. How do you, your organization, approach a project to ensure some level of success? Because I know that it's fluid. I understand that. But what can we do to ensure some level of success, and how do we do that?
Yeah. So, one of the challenges of being a small company like ours is we've been around 40 years, but we've always been small. About 20 to 25 people is traditionally what we are. And the joke it's not really a joke, it's a true statement. But when I had my last HR person came on board, we were hiring, and she says, "Well, Clint, who am I looking for?" And I said, "Oh, it's easy. We're looking for engineers with social skills, willing to travel 3 weeks a month on the road. Good luck with that." I think I found all 20 of them, right? So now I've made the engineers mad at me because they don't have social skills. But there are certain things we have to do, right? And one of the things we always lead with is training, because we have to be speaking the same language. Critical has to mean the same thing to me as it does to you. And I use the word critical on purpose because that's probably one of the most misused, misunderstood words in project management there is somebody will equate something that's important and just automatically say that must be on the critical path then. And that's not true. In the perfect world, none of your really important things should be on the critical path, because the critical path is the ones that if they're late, your project is late. Now, reality says that some of your really important tasks will, of course, end up on the critical path, but just because it's important to your boss doesn't mean it's automatically going to be a task that drives the end of the project, even if it's important. And so you have to make sure that when you say critical, you're really thinking the same thing that I am. We're not confusing those two terms. So we do some training up front just to make sure we're all on the same page. We're going to use the same terminology. Here's how we're going to build our plan. We're going to build it in a collaborative way. We're going to get people in a room to talk about the project. And I just went through this the last couple of weeks for a client on a big global sporting event that's going to be coming up in 2026. And sometimes it's culture shock, right? Because we just came through COVID and there was working remote. And no, we're going to fly people from across the globe. We're going to put them in the same room for 2 weeks, and we're going to build a plan in a collaborative way. And what happens is on day one, you can see on their faces this, why am I here? I could be doing other things more productive. But on day 10, on the last day of the planning, where we actually pull it all together, so many people come up and go, this was fantastic. We never would have gotten this done if we hadn't focused on it, gotten all in a room, talked about it, discussed it, frankly, argued about it at times, and then built this plan together in a collaborative way. Because now not only do I know my work, but I understand how my work affects Joe or Bob or Sue. And I've made sure that Ellen knows that if she's late, I'm going to be late. We all see, now we get the big picture. It's not just my silo, which is where people want to live, is they want to live in their silo. And part of project work is pulling them out of the silo, forcing them to have conversations that maybe they don't want to have because they're super busy. And then what we found is the rest of the next 2 years, we can work remotely, no problem, because we built the plan together in that first couple of weeks. We form bonds that allow us to be remote and still form a connection to individuals, because this is the touchy-feely side of me that comes out. And that is that I need to convert you, Scott, from an email address into a living, breathing human being that I feel accountable to. And the planning helps us do that, because now I can talk to you. I understand who you are. I know your background, and I've formed a connection, even if it's just over lunch or if it's just over a breakfast meeting or over coffee. Now we can have those relationships that really matter, right? And that's really important. That's why we bring people together and force that conversation. Really super important is the word conversation.
How do you, and this is a leadership question, given the realities of that large sporting event, there's a lot of detail to that. I mean, if I'm one of the project managers on this particular task, and you're trying to help me achieve it, you're holding me accountable. But let's say I'm slipping. What do we do? How do we have that conversation?
So that's also the beauty, Scott, of the plan, is like I alluded to earlier, you're going to have 15 things on your plate at any given time. And I also know this is not your day job. You didn't get hired to do this project. You got hired to do some other role in the company. And oh, by the way, go spend 28% of your time on this project, right? And so it's just extra work on top of what you're already doing. So I need to know your part. I need to see how you fit into the overall project. And then I don't want to get into technical details, but there's flexibility, right? The technical term is slack or float, but there's how much flexibility do I have between when I could get it done and when it's absolutely got to be done, or the project's going to be late. And then we'll know from that which activities have flexibility. And you can say, listen, Scott, don't worry about this task. You can do this 2 weeks from now. We're still going to be okay. But this one you have to do. And because we also monitor, we actually come back together every 2 weeks virtually and have a update call to say, well, the plan was great, but we know that the plan never goes as planned. Life happens. So here's what was supposed to have happened. That's fantastic. What actually did happen? What are you doing today that either we didn't plan for because we didn't know about it when we built the plan, or you've learned about, or what's taking you longer than you thought it would? Let's make that adjustment, and hopefully it won't matter. And sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. And so then we have to look as a collective team and say, okay, well, now this vendor has delivered to us a week late. They're going to be a week late. And unfortunately, they were one of those tasks that couldn't be late. So now let's look at from that moment on to the end of the project. We need a week. What can we do to get that week back? And so that's where, the conversation has to happen. And people step up to the plate and they say, well, I can't give you back a week, but I can take that one task that I have 10 days on. I can do it in 8 days. I'll just prioritize that over some other things I got on my plate. There's 2 days back. And together, we make the decisions to get us back on track. And we do that on a regular basis. For us, it's every week or every 2 weeks. And the next time, maybe I'm the one who's late and it's Scott that comes to the rescue, because together we we're going to get this thing across the finish line. We have to do it all together. If you have a project where there's no collaboration and there's no teamwork on it, you better hope your team will win, because that's the only way it's going to be successful.
Yeah. All of these conversations I've had, it always gets down to people, always gets down to collaborating. It just does.
Yeah.
And there is no way of getting around it. And I know the realities that exist in companies. And sometimes it's like, I'm already overburdened with work. The last thing I want to do is be stuck in a room trying to nail down this project schedule, but it has to happen. And you got to create that bond, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
With all that said, what roadblocks? Let's say does it just get down to culture of the organization that just can be the biggest roadblock to project success?
I think the first one that comes is the one you've actually spoken about, which is there's this, I'm already super busy. I already have more work on my plate than I could possibly get done. And now you want to throw this other thing on it, which, okay, maybe I can make it work, but I can't afford to lose a week in planning. And you have to overcome that obstacle. So what we found is you have to have support. You mentioned this earlier. What is the support level needed from your senior management? And we need that support, because I need the senior leadership to say, no, I want you to get together and spend that 3 or 4 days planning so that we don't waste time later. I mean, look, I can give you examples of projects that I walked into and they actually had to air freight concrete block to a construction site. Now, do you think the project manager on day one ever envisioned they were going to be air freighting concrete block? No, that's not a recommended shipping method. They put this up on a truck, right? But the cost of air freight, while super expensive, was still less than the opportunity cost of not opening that building on time. Now, what you'd rather have happened is not still open the building on time, but just truck ship, right? So that's one of the things we have to say, let's invest the time upfront to plan. And then that'll save us a multiple usually of time on the back end. I have another one is you mentioned people matter, and I'm a real big fan of that. My dad has passed away now, but back in the day, he was a superintendent on large industrial construction projects. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, what do you do? What does it mean when you say you're superintendent? He goes, well, son, he says, every day I get my cup of coffee, he says, and I walk the job and I direct traffic. He says, I know on any given day what we need to do that day if we're going to open the doors of this plant 2 years from now. He says, I'll walk the job and I direct traffic and say, Scott, stop doing that. We need to get the scaffolding up today. That's the most important thing. So go help Bob with the scaffolding. And I just direct traffic. And I said, Dad, I don't quite understand that, because wouldn't it be more efficient if you got together at the very beginning and you planned the project? So that way at any given point in time, anybody could reach in the back pocket and know exactly what to work on that day, even if you weren't around. He looked at me for a really long time and finally he smiled and he said, no, because I want to walk the job every day with my cup of coffee. So for my dad, not having a plan was job security, which is another challenge you have to overcome. But to me, a great project manager is somebody who, if they didn't show up for a month, things still got done because the team knew what to work on and they were committed to it and bought into it.
Well, you were wonderful. If I had a project, if I needed to get a hold of Clint, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
You can reach us at projectsuccess.com. I'm on LinkedIn at Clint Padgett on LinkedIn. Clint Padgett on Twitter, X, whatever they call it these days. So I'm easy to reach.
Yeah, I've already looked at your stat card out there. Let me see. Yeah, you look different than your headshot that you have for your LinkedIn.
Yeah, that was about 4 years ago.
Yeah, so I was just going to say.
More gray hair now.
Yeah, I was going to say. What the? Hey.
That was pre-COVID, man.
Well, you were wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate you having me on today.
All right, listeners, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. We're going to have all the contact information for Clint out on Industrial Talk, so reach out. If you have a project, trust me, you need to find somebody that knows what they're doing. Please do that for me. Don't just say 18 months. Don't do that to me. All right. We're going to wrap it up on this side. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
There it is. There it is. Clint Padgett. Don't make a mistake like I made in closing out the introduction and saying Chris. It's not Chris. It's Clint. Clint all day long. Clint Padgett. Yeah, I make mistakes sometimes, like all the time. All right, Project Success Incorporated is the organization, and he was dropping some really valuable insights. You're holding too tight on that project. I'm not going to let it go. Anyway, great conversation. Thank you, Clint, for being on Industrial Talk. All right, building a platform. I say it all the time. It is a platform for you, industrial professionals. You have a podcast, you put it on Industrial Talk. You want a podcast? Talk to Industrial Talk. I'll help you all day long. And if you have your message that you want to amplify, come talk to me. Simple, easy peasy. Be bold, be brave. Dare greatly. Hang out with Clint. Change the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.